All right, Cardinal fans, it is time for Red Rain episode 188. So please welcome in your host, Walter Mitchell.
You Kyle Little Rock Ledbetter sporting his Sacramento A's shirt, sweatshirt, which of course thrills me to no end. Being an A's fan and being a Cardinals fan was fun yesterday. Watching Jacoby Brissett prove that Drew Petzing actually has a good passing attack when it's run on schedule and on time. And boy, what an effort the offensive players made. And unfortunately, it was not reciprocated once again, particularly down the stretch by the team's defense. We'll talk about all of that. In the meantime, I want to hit up Sam, since 61 Sam, with his initial remarks about the game, and then Kyle, and then I'll come back to me.
I expected a disaster yesterday, but Jonathan Gannon has not yet lost his locker room. There's no quit in the Cardinals. They came out and played hard. It was a gutsy performance on offense, and we actually saw a solid offense in the fourth quarter, and that was positives. There are other positives, but as Walt alluded, once again, when the defense needed to stop at the end of the game, didn't happen.
Yep. Kyle?
Yeah, it was seconding kind of what Sam said. They had a fantastic game on offense. Defense didn't have the greatest performance. 150 rushing yards by the Colts. Daniel Jones completing 70-some-odd% of his passes. It was a bit of a field day for the Colts in that front. But you have to be happy with the fact that, like Sam said, they didn't just pack it in and go home, because it could have been very easy to come out there against a team that, at this point, I think we can say the Colts are a legitimately good football team.
They are.
Legitimately great offense. It's enough of a sample size now that we can say that. And they absolutely, coming off of the 3 straight losses and the collapse that was last week, they absolutely could have mailed it in. So hope is not lost, even though the odds are getting longer and longer for them to make it to the playoffs.
Yeah, forget about the playoffs.
I agree.
That's not going to happen. And we've got to unpack some things here because let's start with the defense, because it's same old every week. I tweeted out in the fourth quarter, why are we watching the same shit every week? Soft in coverage. Don't stop the run. I'm sure they had their hands full, with Jonathan Taylor. Look at that. 123 yards on 21 carries. They couldn't stop him. We're not getting much of anything up front on this front line of a defense that they spent all this money on and all this effort in trying to improve. Pass rush was negligent yesterday. On the other side, I thought the Colts came after Kobe is pretty hard much of the afternoon, and Jacoby had some really good answers and really stood in there like a pro's pro and took some licks in order to, get some good hits downfield. It was just so impressive. Jacoby suddenly made all kinds of people who haven't been relevant. Zay Jones. When Zay Jones got knocked off that route early in the interception, I was on Twitter going why did we ever sign Zay Jones? Well, I had to eat crow later because Zay Jones suddenly was on fire. Unlike we've seen, he's had 8 targets. When did he have more than 1 or 2 in any other game practically? And he delivered to the tune of almost 80 yards. It was so impressive. He looked the part and he really came alive. And and how about Greg Dortch with a touchdown? That's a rarity in these days. They're being targeted 3 times and 3 for 3. Not for a great average, but that was good. The only problem with Dortch was, I believe, poorly designed screenplays. Let's talk about the first one. If you're going to screen back to the left after play actioning to the right, and you don't have a guy assigned to Dortch's man, he's got all this time to come up and play the ball. I mean, no sooner did Dortch catch the ball as the defender's in his knees. That was just so poorly. You don't unless you have a screen set up to that side where you can block Dortch's man, then it's a different story. So they didn't. Maybe someone forgot to like a guard forgot to pull out and leave the screen. That was poorly conceived for a loss. The other one was a quick screen to Michael Wilson where Dortch is assigned the key block. I mean, how do you decide? If anything, it's the other way around. You throw it to Dortch and have Wilson make the block. But I mean, Dortch got overpowered and the guy just blew through and tackled Wilson for like a 5-yard loss in a key situation, which Jacoby was bouncing back out of bad situations throughout the game, which was really impressive. But back on the defensive side, here are some alarming stats. The Cardinals are now the worst in the NFL in fourth quarter deficit, minus 36. So you're not, as we've seen, until yesterday and the Seattle game, we got fourth quarter offense. But again, it's this repetitive, seems like just prevent soft defense down the stretch every game. Gannon vowed to correct this after 2 weeks when we got away with wins. What corrections are being made? Absolutely zero. Cardinals, get this stat, okay? The Cardinals defense hasn't forced a fourth quarter punt since the 10-minute mark of game 1 against New Orleans. I mean, come on, man. I mean, that's brutal. I mean, how do you... And it's not for lack of talent. We got Calais Campbell up front. We got Josh Sweat. We got Dalvin Tomlinson. We got Zaven Collins. We got Jordan Birch. We got Baron Browning. We got Mac Wilson Sr. We got Will Johnson out there who coming into the game was highest cornerback rated in the league. Unfortunately, not anymore because he had a bad game. On the other side, I mean, Max Melton made a great play on Pierce on the long ball. He's playing well. He had a good tackle later. And you got Buda Baker, who for whatever reason is looking like a shell of himself, except for the nice pass he almost intercepted, which was thrown to his side. I don't know if that was a viable interception. It was pretty hard to catch it from that angle. But and Jalen Thompson had a good game yesterday. He had the highest PFF grade on the defense. And then you got, Dadrian Taylor Demerson, who I think is a stud in the making, and Keaton Crawford, who I also think is a stud in the making. You've got talent on that side of the ball, and you're squandering it left and right. And you're making them play softball. And you're not putting them in positions to make plays on the ball. Once again, yesterday, our pass defense barometer was like 5. In our 2 wins, it was 10 and 10. That's getting your hands on the football via interceptions or pass breakups. So, someone's got to shake about this defense. And all this talk about, the Morales being a future head coach. And I mean, if your defense doesn't tackle and doesn't cover, what is it good for? And it doesn't rush the passer. Listen to these statistics now, rankings in the NFL that came out today. with the PFF grades for defense. Defense overall, 26th in the league. Run defense, 30th.
Oh, yeah.
Tackling, 24. Totally unacceptable in a third year of a defensive-minded head coach. Totally unacceptable. Pass rush, 28th. Coverage, 11. Because they're pretty good for 3 quarters, but then in the fourth quarter, just go into that soft prevent. And special teams, best grade on the team is 6. On the flip side, the offense has gone ahead of the defense after that performance yesterday. The offense is 23rd. The defense is 26th. The offense in pass is 14th after yesterday. Pass blocking is 9th. Boy, they tried real hard to keep those Colts guys out of there, and I thought they battled really well. It was going to be hard. I mean, they have a really good pass rush, and I know those Colts pass rushers were really frustrated because they were talking about that after the game. And then run blocking is not good, 25. Run game is not good, 23. But that's the thing. We haven't been the same running team without Clayton Adams. So before I go on to make what looks to me like a potential change in identity for Drew Bensing's offense, let me just consult Sam and Kyle about the impact of losing Clayton Adams to this offense. Sam?
Well, it certainly has impacted in a negative way our running game. I mean, we only had, I think we had combined under 4 yards per rush yesterday, only 68 total yards rushing. We haven't rushed for over 100 yards all season. You watch the Colts run the ball on first down. That's how we should run the ball on first down. And it's just not happening. Clayton Adams' loss is a huge loss to this running game.
Right.
And even though we've lost 3 of our top running backs, there's no excuse for it. The blocking and the gaps are not there for these running backs, and they're just not. And it's an interior line issue.
Right.
Hernandez's play improved Adams's play. Adams went over the left side when Brown got hurt, but neither guy is getting the job done.
Right. Brown had a better day yesterday. He scored in the mid-60s. That was encouraging to see. And Hernandez is really, really struggling in pass pro. He's turning gate right now. His pass pro grade in 2 games is 15. Woo.
I think he was at 0 in one game too. I think I saw.
Yeah, he had 4.0 in the first one, and now a little bit better yesterday. But you can't. He's coming back as sooner than you would think. From an ACL, a player his size and age. So he's trying to give the team a boost, and I think in certain ways he is. But in
he's
pass
the best
pro,
they've got.
Yep.
And unfortunately, he's the best they've got.
Well, he is if he returns to his old ways and and feels healthy enough to be able to play at his the level he's accustomed to, because he was flat out balling when he went out last year. It was just so sad because he was heading for a big payday. Now they're paying guards $20 million a year. He was heading in that direction. It's just pretty sad that happened to him when it did. When he was peaking as a player, I mean, he was at his all-time best.
No question, and that was under Adams.
And it was under Adams, and we'll talk about Adams later because I have a thought about Adams for the future. But Kyle, what's your sense? What do you see?
So, to the Clayton Adams point specifically, I think Sam kind of nailed the point of there's clearly been an effect in the run game. And I say this all the time. Offensive line is just a byproduct of your run game in the NFL. Adams leaving is not the only reason why the offense has taken a step back, but it is a fundamental reason, right? So obviously the injuries have been a big part of it too, not just Hernandez, but Connor and Benson and on down. But at the same time, Sam mentioned they haven't had a 100-yard rushing game. Connor was there for 2 of those games. In the Seattle game, Benson looked like he was playing really well before he got hurt. So you look at that and say, well, the running backs have done their job. Even Bam Knight coming in a really difficult situation, I feel like has done as well as you could expect from someone who was a practice squad running back to start the season put in this position. But yeah, the offensive line as a whole has not been as good as last year. I mean, Froholt is excellent. It was damn near a Pro Bowler last year. So it's not so much a talent issue, given that this is predominant, minus the guard situation with Hernandez going out and coming back. This is basically the same offensive line as last year. So then you go to see what's differentiated, and that's Adams. Also, before we move on, just breaking news that just came in while we were recording. I love when this happens. The Titans have fired Brian Callahan, so that comeback did not save his job in Tennessee. They've gone ahead and fired Brian Callahan after 23 games as head coach.
And the Raiders whooped butt on him. Whooped him.
A Raiders team that is not very good.
Right.
Well, and neither is ours, obviously. Right. And that's the sad part, is squandering that kind of lead. I want to get back to that lead again, because I've been tracing what happened down the stretch. But before I do, I want to get back to your points, really good points, both of you. And let's add to the fact now that Tip Raymond's gone and Travis Vokalek looks like he'll be out. Maybe, I don't know if it'll be all season, but like Tip's gone on the season-ending IR. That affects our having Vokalek go out on the opening kickoff, as a number of the players said, affected their game plan considerably, because they were going to play in a lot of 12 and 13 personnel. And what they did was they've been adjusting by playing Kelvin Beachum at tight end. And actually, Beachum had the second highest game grade on the team at 80.9 yesterday. So, give it to Beach. I mean,
no question.
God, the guy's an incredible pro and so reliable, and someone you can really depend on. He's a great leader, and so it's good to know we have that. I think they're going to have to make a decision on who to pull up to the active roster in Vokalek's place. Thank God Vokalek's fine, apparently. Well, he's not. He was able to check out of the hospital and go back with the team last night. So that's very positive news. That was scary there for a while, and so we got to be happy about that. And this Travis Vokalek, it has a niche as a blocking tight end in the NFL, and I'm really glad we have him on the team. Josiah DeGuara is more of a receiver than blocker, but boy, if you watched Higgy Bear yesterday blocking, he's really getting after it. I mean, Higgy Bear has really taken a third-year jump. His PFF grade was 79.5, third highest on the team yesterday, third highest on the offense. That was really encouraging. And boy, is he a rack guy after the catch, knocking over people and trying to get every last yard he can. That's a really encouraging thing. So, but here's the thing, is that what we saw yesterday is, as I was saying, suddenly Zay Jones is relevant. Poor Marvin Harrison Jr., who had the highest grade on the team yesterday at 84.2. He was coming out great in his return to Indy, and then got knocked backwards. And anyone who's suffered that before and seeing the stars when you do the whiplash on the straight back on the head, it's unnerving. And obviously he didn't pass concussion protocols, and I know no one was more disappointed than Marvin was, because he had marked this game on the schedule as a huge game for him. But even having Marvin out, suddenly I texted middle of the game, we need Michael Wilson to step up and maybe get a sneaky guy like a Simi Fehoko to like somehow make a splash play. Turns out Fehoko was wide open on a bomb that was just missed, and Jacoby has really regretted it afterwards that he didn't see it sooner. And it turns out that Michael Wilson had the great catch down to the 10-yard line on the final drive. And he did a good job yesterday stepping up. And he said after the game, he just felt so great about the chemistry the team had with Jacoby, and what a pro he was in the huddle, and how he had things organized. And suddenly with this passing game, and then Jacoby was using his backs out of the backfield. Bam Knight had a good one. Michael Carter, how about that run from him where he's spinning off? And these guys were playing their asses off. And, it was so refreshing to see. And I got to be honest, for the first time since Colt McCoy swept the NFC West teams, beating all of them by 10 plus points or more, away at Seattle, at San Francisco, at LA, it's the first time I felt at peace and confident watching a Cardinals offense. I don't get that when I'm watching Kyler Murray. I just don't. He makes me nervous. I get leery of what can happen next. And maybe I've just been watching him too long. I mean, sometimes it's just, when you've watched a player for so long, it just kind of sets a mindset or whatever. But, I just don't. I've lost confidence in Kyler and his ability to run an offense, particularly when it's needed the most. And maybe Kyler, I thought it was just so anticlimactic after a game like that to feel this kind of hope that we saw, that we now have a new offensive identity. We can throw the ball and throw it well to the tune of 320 yards. When was the last time that happened? And I mean, really, go ahead.
October 30th, 2022. That was the last time Murray passed for over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, that was against the Chargers at home. Or no, somebody else. But, yeah, exactly. We haven't seen it in the Gannon era. And, by design, this offense has been run-oriented. And, I said at the time, when you do that, it's not quarterback friendly, for passing, because you've got to be precise in key spots. If it's like 3rd and 5 because you run the ball twice, you've got to deliver on that 3rd and 5 to keep the drive going. And, this isn't the most quarterback friendly system. But yesterday it was, amazingly. And if it weren't for Trey McBride getting held on that last play, which clearly he was, 2 hands on the back of his jersey, which the only thing about that play that bothered me was it was so late developing. I don't know what McBride was thinking. I think he was probably designed to be a decoy on the play to attract a safety, which he did, but the safety was on his inside, and the whole time he had the opportunity to bust an out route open for a TD, but he ends up like halfway down the end zone. When Wilson crossed, all he had to do was bang out, throw his air. It would have been an easy touchdown because he had leverage on the receiver. That's why the receiver was trying to hold him. The receiver knew that, the cornerback was trying to hold him because the quarterback knew that Trey had established leverage, and all he had to do was bounce it out and bang it out, and we got him. And unfortunately, again, it comes down to play design right there in a key situation. Here's the other thing, too. If you're going to go out on a route halfway into the end zone from the 6-yard line, right? So that's almost like 15 yards. you better hope that pass rush is getting to the quarterback by then, which it was. I mean, that's too much time. It's too long. So maybe they learned something from that. But still, you can't deny he was grabbed. And unfortunately, Cardinals don't seem to get those kind of calls when it matters most. Although I thought they got a couple flags picked up in key situations that could have hurt them earlier in the game. So we got to be fair about that. But this is an identity that. So now we go into Green Bay. I can't envision, no matter whether Kyler's feeling better, that he's going to want to play against that Green Bay pass rush.
I hope he doesn't.
Right. So, this is, in a way, a convenient few weeks. I just don't get, if you're not playing him. Well, here's my whole thing. I'll jump on it right now, and then I want to hear Sam and Kyler on this. So when we found out, the next day from the Titans game, there was this mystery Kyler injury where suddenly he's walking and looking fine going into the locker room against the Titans. It came on the play where he got hit in the face. Some people thought maybe he was concussed by that. Some people thought, what's going on? He seemed to be walking fine. So they're just going into the locker room. Jacoby Brissett comes in for a play. All right. So, and then, suddenly Kyler's back in the game and hustling onto the field. Everything looks good. Come to find out, a doctor who's like one of the NFL doctors who studies injuries gets on Twitter on Monday morning. Did you see this, Sam? Did you see a doctor reporting on? All right, so he's now telling us that he studied Kyler post the injury, and Kyler had no use of his back foot, couldn't plant and throw. And he said that could have been why Kyler was 2 of 4 in the fourth quarter. And then I thought to myself, if the coaches knew this, right? Which if a doctor who's watching games knows this, and he showed video evidence of Kyler not being able to plant on the back foot. I mean, maybe now we understand a little better why the coaches decided to go on 3rd and 8, because Kyler wasn't, didn't have a plant foot. I mean, and why is Kyler in the game if he's impaired like that? And I think if they'd just gone to Jacoby and he done anything similar to what he did yesterday, we win that game easily. Instead, we had to struggle all the way down the stretch. And now Jacoby plays this great game. And right after the game, Gannon says, oh, no, Kyler Murray's the starting quarterback. I mean, is that fair to the players? I mean, you could see the elation in Michael Wilson's face. You could see Marvin, before the game even happened, touting Jacoby's leadership and the interest he's taken in his development and feeling really excited. He said, I'm excited to have him play. I mean, you could feel the excitement of Jacoby playing as palpable. So what a bummer how to take the air out of the balloon. And you've done this great thing on offense against a really good defense, by the way. Those guys aren't slouches. They're one of the better defenses in the league. And with one of the great coordinators, Lou Anarumo, who's one of the only guys on the planet who's ever figured out how to stop Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. And he had a hard time stopping Jacoby Brissett yesterday. And if they get the holding call at the end, I don't know if they win that game. The Cardinals could punch it in and win that, come away with a win. Although we'd have 28 seconds left, right? So we never know. Wait. You can't call that for sure. But it felt demoralizing. Like for those of us who now have hope that we can watch an exciting passing game that's consistent. And by the way, Jacoby Brissett, what was there, one punt in the game from the Cardinals? he was consistently moving the ball all 4 quarters, all 4 of them. And that hasn't happened all year in any of the games. And he looked at ease and in command and on schedule and boom, throwing dimes on time, right off the cuts. Oh, it was impressive. But going back to the Tennessee game, what a colossal mistake it was to keep Kyler in that game if he couldn't plant and throw. Do you agree? What do you think?
Well, I definitely agree. And if we would have seen the offense we saw yesterday, I think we would have beat the Niners and the Titans. I mean, it was noticeable that Petzing called a different type of game with Brissett under center.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily say that Brissett is more talented than Kyler, but it very well points to the type of quarterback that works best in this style of offense. We saw a quarterback put this team on his back and make big plays to try to win a football game.
Yes.
We also saw that this coaching staff clearly trusts Brissett more than they do Kyler. They remained aggressive and succeeded on numerous third and long situations, high-risk plays that are always surrender moments for Murray. And I think you're right, Walt. I think seeing the reaction of the players before and after the game, this QB change gave the whole team a reason to fight.
Yeah. Kyle?
So I think that the general rule in the NFL is that you don't invite a QB competition unless there is an actual QB competition. So it feels kind of like Gannon did the easy thing, right? This is the same thing happening with the 49ers, right? When Mac Jones plays well, Brock Purdy's the starting quarterback. You know, no matter what happens, Brock Purdy's the starting quarterback. So Gannon did the easy thing by not inviting in the controversy, whether there is one or not. I think the question is just going to be whether or not Kyler Murray's healthy the rest of the way. Because the tough part is like, yes, Kyler Murray is more talented, but Jacoby Brissett presumably fits the scheme a little bit better than Kyler Murray does. And perhaps that's why if Jacoby plays 2, 3, 4 more games, you might see more 300 passing yard type of games potentially, because Jacoby fits into what Drew Petzing wanted to do when he first got here and what he wanted to do back when he was in Cleveland. So I understand why Jacoby looks good in the offense, but that's kind of where I have problems with it, because how many teams have we seen move on from talented quarterbacks because they don't fit a scheme, and then that quarterback goes on to have success elsewhere, whether it's Sam Darnold or everything else. So
Right.
It's tough. I understand why they said what they said, but as it relates to last week's game, yeah, I mean, Kyler clearly has a significant injury, and if, like you said, one of those David Chow, one of those doctors, just by watching from home, then you know, I'm sure a team doctor with the Cardinals who has access to it could probably notice that too. But I also don't fault Kyler for, you know, playing through it and being like, oh, I'm fine situation. Unless the doctors rule you out, these guys always want to go back.
Yeah, but you can't have your cake and eat it too, because Kyler after the game was sure to throw Petzing under the bus. And so was Gannon. It was just despicable, I think, from both of them. They wanted to make sure everyone knew that was Petzing's call on 3rd and 8. And if Kyler's impaired, you know, he's 2 for 4 with all those and not moving the ball in the 4th quarter. So how does that generate, you know, confidence with the coaching staff now who has to be concerned whether he actually has the back foot to be able to throw off of? So it's a dynamic that's, you know, you probably said our best thing to do is punt it and hope that this time around with rookie quarterback we'll get to him and we'll win the game.
Well, that's been the offensive game plan in every 4th quarter.
It seems that
3 and 8 is just an example of it. They don't trust Kyler to lead this team and make plays in the 4th quarter, and he hasn't.
Right, except
we
for
talked
Seattle.
about it. We talked about it last game. He's 8-39 when trailing in the fourth.
Correct. And, I'll reiterate. I've said this before. Before the season began, during the off season, I had one of my contacts explain to me that he'd been hearing very clearly that the Cardinals are concerned that Kyler Murray may have maxed out in what he can give them on offense and not be able to take it to the next level. Be that as it may, I can see where this feeds into, if they're not sure, if they're suddenly waning in their commitment to him. And, they were thrust into this, but they signed up for it too. But it just goes back to the very beginning and the plan. If you're locking in on Kyler right away, why was it this offense? And why, it just seemed like they're just going to do what they wanted to do and then hope Kyler could fit in rather than hire someone who was tailor-made. And like I know Sam's been critical of the Cardinals coaching hires because their quarterback coach doesn't have much experience at all. And now you're working with Kyler Murray and trying to help Kyler Murray. And then the system itself, until yesterday, hasn't looked quarterback friendly. But we learned yesterday that it's there. We learned yesterday that it's an option when run properly. And here's the thing about Jacoby Brissett. It's his poise. And that makes everybody else better. It's the poise and the spreading the ball around, keeping everybody. He made everybody in that offense better yesterday. Everybody had a moment in the sun, and the offensive line cooperated. I think they battled as hard as they could, given the circumstances. The thing that pissed me off was having Michael Carter as the blocking back. That was stupid.
So stupid.
I mean, he got blown over the first time, and Brissett was sacked, and that's the end of one drive. And on the next time, the only other two times he was sacked was with Michael Carter in the backfield. Next time, he doesn't even go to make the block. He just circles out of the backfield on like a 3rd and 10. I mean, and so, all right, discipline Amari DiMercato or do whatever you're going to do, but at the cost of the team. I mean, these are the little things, like who you put on whom, like who you have blocking for you. How about this one? How in the world do you have Will Johnson playing like 8-yard coverage in the red zone with the ball on the 5-yard line on Ty Warren? Someone please explain to me that. That is just absurd. I mean, you're playing a tight end. If you're going to play a tight end in the red zone, you've got to bump him. You've got to get physically. You've got to take him off his route. Instead, Ty Warren just runs across or he's wide open, which of course he would be, with Will Johnson running half speed behind him.
They had no answer for Warren all day.
Right. How about this one? How do you have Buda Baker on Josh Downs in the red zone? Someone please explain. I mean, Downs just went right by Buda, and then we see Buda jogging half speed with Downs catching a wide open touchdown. I mean, and something's the matter with Buda Baker, because this is not the Buda Baker we've been accustomed and been privileged to see. How about that running touchdown by Jonathan
Taylor?
Taylor. at the end where Buddha's got contained, and Buddha just lets it. I mean, the old Buddha would have submarined that play. Would have just really gotten in the backfield and tried to get to Jonathan Taylor before he could make his cut. Instead, he just let the whole play him, and he just looked. It didn't look like Buddha at all. He just let them take him out of the play and gave Taylor an easy cutback for the touchdown. And there was no fight, put it that way, on either of those two plays. And it saddens me to say this because I'm a huge Buddha Baker fan. But this was poor effort. And, you know, if you're assigned to Josh Downs, you better get on your horse and dog him. Instead, again, it was like 5 yards deep into the end zone cushion, which is, what are you doing? I don't get it.
Colts were perfect in the red zone yesterday. Went 4 for 4.
They were, and that was the difference in the game. Cardinals were 2 for 4.
Yeah,
I think, or 3 for 5 or something. But the Colts were 4 for 4, and they cashed in every time. But the details of how they got in there, you know, was really, when you look at it closely, it was really mistakes in assignments and who you. I think at one point they had Akeem Davis Gaither on Josh Downs, a linebacker. I mean, Josh Downs is quick as a cat guy. How about Keaton Crawford put on him? Even Dadrian Taylor-Demerson has got 4.4 speed. How about, you know, making matchups like the week before? Why do you have Katro Clark on Calvin Ridley with the game on?
we see it every week. We see it every week with Clark.
I mean,
he's not effective on the boundary.
When you have Will Johnson, and someone's arguing, well, Will Johnson was on Anamiro, the rookie, who had 2 catches in the game, because he was his equal a threat. Just, you know, I mean, Ridley ripped us for 131 yards.
Catch this week against
26
the Raiders.
yards of catch.
I said he came back and had 1 catch
One.
this week against the Raiders.
Because, hello, Pete Carroll got involved. And this is where experienced coaching comes.
That's right.
And how you're going to get to Cam Ward. We're not seeing any of that, particularly in second halves of Cardinal games. So I don't know how that shakes out, but I can't imagine having a defensive-minded head coach if you're going to play the defense like this.
4 weeks.
And so I'm already thinking ahead because, you know, I mean,
for 5 weeks in a row, the Colts have ended all their games with Jonathan Taylor. No team has stopped Taylor all season. But if you looked at the tape of the previous game, the Cards staff should have known that they initiate rotating gap schemes that allow him to consistently gain yardage. And they had nothing for it. They had no response. It was like they had never seen it before.
And he's dragging D tackles for 5 yards.
Well, he's as good a running back as there is in the league.
He is great. Now you have to scheme up for that, and it's a difficult challenge. But here's the thing, too, was that when the Cardinals got to Daniel Jones and he looked a little shaky, what did they do next possession? Hello, Jonathan Taylor. Take us out of this rut. They took the pressure off Jones and started running them, hammering the ball, and behind that really good offensive line. I mean, Quentin Nelson may be the best guard in football right now. Is the left guard. So
we could have drafted him.
Oh, did we have a chance?
Yep.
Who we draft instead?
I don't think he's I don't think he's taken a snap for it. It was a defensive player, I think.
Okay.
It was Quentin Nelson, the 6th pick in that draft. I'm trying to remember. That was the Baker Mayfield draft, I want to say. I'm trying to remember what year that was that he was picked.
Did you see Baker Mayfield yesterday?
Tremendous.
That guy, and people, Cardinal fans, Kyler stands, keep it claiming, oh, Kyler's way better than Baker Mayfield.
Not anymore.
Not ever.
Quentin Nelson was the Josh Rosen draft.
So he was this number 6 pick?
He was 6. Rosen was 10, but it
Yep.
was that same year.
All right,
where
so we didn't have a chance.
Okay, we did.
They could have had a lot of good players that year. I forgot how great that draft class was.
Great
Even
draft.
after Rosen, it was Minka Fitzpatrick, Vita Vea, Deron Payne, Colton Miller,
Right.
Jair Alexander, Derwin James, Frank Ragnow was the 20th pick.
What is
Just
this
Pro
year?
Bowlers.
What year is this?
2018.
Oh, okay. The Wilkes year.
All those people were after Rosen. I mean, there were great players before that, but yeah, there's 1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Pro Bowlers taken in the next 11 picks after Josh Rosen.
Josh, we hardly knew you.
I saw he's at I think he's going to like Wharton Business School now or something. I saw that the other day.
He's a bright
good
guy.
spot. Good
I
for
mean,
him.
I
Class
would have
act.
liked to have seen what Cliff could have done with Rosen. I bet he could have gotten some pretty good play out of him. I mean, Cliff could get good play out of David Blau and Trace McSorley. Cliff had a 10-point lead over Tom Brady with Trace McSorley starting for the first time in a season. I mean, late in that 2022 season. I mean, Cliff with quarterbacks is pretty dang special. I mean, I don't know. It's all water on the bridge now, but
Yep.
you know, Rosen coming out of UCLA was throwing some dimes there, and I think he might have actually been a pretty decent fit in Cliff's offense. So,
Walter, you're never going to believe this. So I was just thinking, is David Blau still hanging around somewhere?
I think
David Blau.
He's on the Commanders coaching staff.
He's the assistant quarterback coach for Cliff now.
Correct.
Oh, very cool. Good for him.
And when David Blau came in that year in 2022, because the quarterbacks were going down left and right, Kyler was out then, and McCoy was out, concussed. In 2 weeks, he had Blau ahead of the Falcons in week 17 with a lead all the way up to the last kick, where the Falcons won the game like 20-19 in the last second. I mean, he had a lead with a guy who had been in camp, been in the building for 2 weeks. It was just, I thought, one of the most incredible stretch of games. Cliff had 4 quarterbacks take fourth quarter leads, different quarterbacks down the stretch in 2022. And then they fired his ass. I mean, so, I mean, it was
Best thing I ever did for him.
Yeah, and look at what he's doing now. I'll tell you, I wrote a post this week, tweet this week, that other than BA and Todd Bowles, I mean, the most talented coach that the Cardinals have hired since Bidwill, took over. This Michael Bidwill was Cliff Kingsbury, hands down. I mean, he's the most gifted coach. Now, was he, was the whole setup wrong? Yes. Was he ready to be an NFL head coach? No. Could they have had him as a coordinator? I think they might have been able to lure him out of USC for that. I could see that happen. Of course, the money's better too. So, but anyway, but in terms of coaching and teaching and repping and getting guys ready to play. And here's the thing with Cliff. He coaches all his quarterbacks. This goes back to Texas Tech when he had guys going out and then the new guys coming in playing great. Like he has with Marcus Mariota. I think Marcus Mariota's 3-1 under Cliff like Colt was 3-1 until he got beat up in that Niners Mexico game while Sean Kugler was out bar hopping. So it's I go back to Cliff because I'm nostalgic about passing offense, and we got it this week. It was so exciting to see. It was, I mean, he's really dealing in this game, and I'm so happy for Michael Wilson, who I think is so egregiously underused. I mean, I think he's a really good, talented wide receiver, but this poor guy at best has hoped to, has been getting 2 targets a game, when in fact he deserves at least 5, maybe 8. And if they can start to devise a plan to do that. So it boils down to this. I think it's more than likely Jacoby will get the Green Bay game. It's going to be a real challenge going in. They also going to have, Green Bay will have some tape on Jacoby. And I got to say this. I watched all of Jacoby's games last year with the Patriots, and I thought he was done. I mean, he really struggled. And I was always pulling for him because I always liked him coming out. But I was just like, oh, man, there's something wrong with Jacoby. But this Jacoby who showed up in Arizona is awesome. And I'll ask this. Could he be the next Geno Smith? I mean, you never know. I mean, everyone gets locked into, oh, well, he's just a backup and he won't be. Whoa, Geno Smith was just a backup. For a while there, Sam Darnold was a backup. I mean, last year, Daniel Jones, when he was released, became a backup. See, I mean, you never know. You never know. I mean, what I think is really common between Jacoby and Geno Smith is the humbleness and the work ethic and the kind of, and the way they can galvanize a team. I think I saw a galvanized offense yesterday, and it was so pleasing to watch, who were really, really getting after it. And, please bring more of that on next Sunday with the Packers. And so you never know. I mean, if that's, like you said, Sam, maybe the bottom falls out on this one, like we were thinking it might yesterday. But who knows? And then we got the bye week, and we can talk about what the status would be then and what to look forward to, post bye week. Is there a chance the Cardinals could trade Kyler Murray before the trading deadline? Let's start with Kyle on this one. Kyle, a chance they could trade Kyler Murray if they're out of the playoffs?
I'm going to say no, not because it would kick off the process of, like, Kyler could get traded in the offseason. I think it's just going to be too complex of a trade to execute right before the deadline, particularly if the coach and general manager are still in charge, right? Because I live in Sacramento, and let me tell you, letting the outgoing general manager and outgoing coach make the trade of your franchise piece did not go very well for them. So I just think logistically it's hard to get everyone aligned organizationally to make such a dramatic decision. And I'm not saying it's a good or bad process to try and see if you can trade him. I'm just saying that unless Monty Awesomeforth has the commitment that you are going to be the general manager, I just can't see him giving up on Kyler Murray when his job is not secure. So I'd say no, but not for like it's a good or bad decision for the organization moving forward.
Right. Sam?
Well, I think it's too complex, and I don't think they have a trading partner before the end of the season. Right. Plus, if they're going to trade him, and I don't want to comment on whether I want them to or not. But if they trade him, it's going to be after the June 1st deadline, so they can save some dead cap money.
Right.
Also, I think every team's going to wait and see who's coming out in this next quarterback class. Certainly, it's not a very good free agent class in 26, at least not right now. So I think a lot of teams are going to look at saving dollars. And I think that's going to make it tough for the Cardinals to trade him because it is a good quarterback class coming out of college. And who's going to take a shot with Kyler? Seriously, who's going to take a shot with Kyler?
Right.
I guess I also forgot to add the point, like he's a 8th-year quarterback with a major foot injury too. So I don't know who's trading for him now with the uncertainty of whether he's even going to be able to play in the rest of the season or how much of the rest of the season.
Do you think it's a major foot injury?
It's a Liz Frank injury. I don't know how serious it is, but Liz Frank for football players is a long recovery time, and it's a recurring injury too.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think by the offseason, he's going to have some sort of procedure done to heal the foot. But that doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow. I would imagine, and I'm not saying a procedure that takes 8 months. He'll probably have some operation done on the foot at some point. But because otherwise, how are you going to be able to let it heal? The more he plays, the worse it's going to get as the season goes along. It's a broken foot.
If you want a wild prediction on Kyler's future in the NFL, I see Kyler retiring before he agrees to a trade where he's going to have to earn the job, where he's going to have to be coached hard, where he's going to have to start all over. I don't see him doing that. I see him taking his money and going doing something else.
How about baseball?
Well, if there's an opportunity, that's exactly what he should do. But I don't. Kyler's had it too cushy here. He's called too many of the shots here. He absolutely will leave here as a close to a bust. I don't see Kyler. I just don't see Kyler's personality trying to resurrect his legacy, whatever that might be, with another team. I don't think he has it in him.
Yeah, I was thinking of the Raiders as the most likely possibility. I tweeted that out this week because of Chip Kelly and the Chip Kelly's version of the air raid is a version that Kyler could be pretty dynamic in, and I think that Chip Kelly's the kind of coach that could be like Red Pollard was to Seabiscuit, the jockey, the famous jockey who was, sometimes there's a chemistry there. And, I also have heard that Tom Brady is a fan of Kyler's. So, Brady's involvement there. And I think Pete Carroll has seen moments when Kyler's been brilliant. And if Chip Kelly's saying, hey, let's take this guy. Plus, the Raiders fans know very well they've seen Kyler at his utmost best. Last time he played in Vegas, he was unbelievable. And
Pete Carroll doesn't really have time to do rebuilds either, so they might be a candidate for trading for one of these quarterbacks.
And because Pete Carroll doesn't have time for a rebuild, the Raiders' offense is so terrible so far under Chip Kelly. I'm not sure Chip Kelly's going to be there next year.
Oh, that's a good point. Right. That's a really good point. And
I kind of think to both of your points too, right? Like Kyler's still good enough that one of these down on their luck teams, if he were made available, I think it's the same thing with Tua, where if one of them were made available, one of these down on their luck teams starting Dylan Gabriel's and Justin Fields's and everything else, someone would take a chance on Kyler Murray. I think he's got one more shot, whether it's in Arizona or somewhere else, to kind of prove his worth in the league.
Right. Well, I get one thing to add, and then a final question for both of you. What I want to add is that I posted this out yesterday, is the more I think about it, I want Clayton Adams back and make him head coach. He's got the special it factor. I think head coaches today need to have a specialty that can help, raise the level of play of the whole football team. With Jonathan Gannon, I don't think he quite has a schematic specialty. I think he's, an upbeat guy that players like, and that's all good. But we've seen for 6 weeks he can't stop the bleeding. He doesn't have any adjustments to make this stop, and we saw it in the Super Bowl, unfortunately. And we saw it in year one when Daniel Jones, with a 20-0 lead against him, had like an epic second half where no one could stop him. I don't know if you remember that Giant game. There have been games like that where it's just, you can't call the right timeout. You can't make the right adjustment. It just snowballs. And, you got to have a guy like Todd Bowles was one of the greatest guys to stop snowballs I've ever seen. And look at him now. I mean, Todd Bowles was the best defensive coordinator we've had, I think, ever. And his halftime adjustments were always brilliant. And then with BA being his Red Pollard and riding him hard down the end of the games to be pressure. Todd Bowles really did us justice. So I'd really love to see, and I don't see. I'm really kind of zoned out on Monty because it feels to me like he's never learned a thing about the Patriots. I don't know how he's made these series of decisions, but it makes me nervous because if these are the kinds of decisions he thinks going to lead an organization out of the cellar in the NFC West with the most inexperienced coaching staff imaginable and all brand new coordinators who are learning on the job but are really, really struggling. I mean, and a head coach who looks like he's out of his league or is not in the same ballpark yet. I don't get Monty, and I also don't like his drafts, the way that, he's drafted a lot of players that have injury histories, and it's bit him in the butt because they're recurring and, but that's why, but I do like Dave Sears a lot, and I love his connections with the Lions, and I love his talent, eye for talent in the draft. So I'd love to see them transition over to Dave Sears, who knows Clayton Adams really well. And then we have, in my opinion, you have Sears and Adams create a staff with some veteran coordinators and see how we can compete better in the NFC West. That would be my plan. I want you to chew on that. And next week, we'll talk more about, I want you to think in a week's time of of a scenario that you would like to see next year with the GM and head coaching spots. But here's my final question for you. So are we in a deja vu all over again scenario? And I had said this a few weeks ago. I had said it may take playing Jacoby Brissett to see what Drew Petzing's offense really looks like on schedule, because we're not seeing it right now. And I said, just as we saw Colt McCoy remind us of how Cliff's offense was supposed to be run on schedule. And so what happened in 2021 was that Colt McCoy won over the confidence of the offensive players. And when Kyler was injured, they wanted Cliff to stick with Colt because Colt was riding a hot hand. I mean, he had beat San Francisco and Seattle on the road by 10 or more points and played clean games. And he didn't have Hopkins with him, and he had like a makeshift offensive line. And Colt was just poised, just like Jacoby was, just making plays on time, being very efficient. And Colt was scoring 27 points a game, just like we saw yesterday, and winning like 27-17. And I think he had a 31-point game in there. And so here's my question. Do we now have a similar scenario where can you imagine that the players in the locker room privately, or maybe even they're going to Gannon and saying, look, we're so much more into having Jacoby at quarterback. We feel like he gives us a better chance. Do you see this as a possible deja vu scenario? Sam?
No, I definitely see that as a possible scenario. And I think we need to see Brissett do well when they lose to the Packers next week. And then everybody's sitting on a bye wondering what's going on. But that's actually time for Kyler to heal.
Right.
And I think whoever's behind center after the bye is going to tell us a lot about where this team's future is.
If knowing they had a Liz Frank on Kyler, why is he out there Thursday in practice running around?
Well, I understand it's a tough injury to diagnose. And I don't know how severe it is. In fact, I don't know what's going on with that team. He may have a very, very minor injury.
Right.
And so you mentioned Michael Wilson benefited from Brissett yesterday, but who in that franchise benefited the most? Drew Petzing.
Yes.
That was renewed faith in this coaching staff yesterday, even regardless of the loss. So,
vindication.
We'll see what happens in the next few weeks, especially after the bye.
Well, and hopefully Marvin can play the whole game this week, and we can see more of Brissett to Marvin, which Marvin has been saying he's really enjoyed the chemistry he's building. So that'd be fun. Kyle, what do you think? Do you think it's deja vu all over again, and the coaches are just going to acquiesce and go back to Kyler no matter what?
So here's where I'm struggling with whether it's deja vu, because I'm not, deja vu is like a feeling you get like, oh, I've been here before. And where I'm struggling on the deja vu part of it is the injuries on the offense now will limit their ability to succeed. James Conner being out, Tip Ryman being out, Volkolek being out. Hernandez has struggled coming back from injury. Trey Benson still being on IR. I feel like the fact that the offense is so injured now makes it difficult to reconcile. Like, they might be able to succeed, but to what degree, because they're going to be so shorthanded at this point. And that's kind of the tough part where where this gives me a little bit of deja vu, and this sucks because they're a better team than this, but it reminds me of the Josh Dobbs time when they first got there, where it was Rondale Moore and Zach Ertz and a rookie Trey McBride who kind of took over as the season went along. And it's like, now you've got a kind of ragtag bunch of guys, and they're not winning games, but the offense at least looks serviceable at times. Like that Cowboys game, they absolutely killed it. So I'm kind of struggling to reconcile that, because you're right. Brissett could take over like Colt did, and they play really well, but they're also super injured. And that's kind of the hard part, where I don't know how many games they're going to be able to win. And even if they do rally around Brissett, to what end is that? Is that a 5-win season, a 6-win season? I mean, everyone's getting fired if they have a 5 or 6-win season coming out of this, because you can't afford to take a step back like that in year 3 of an unproven regime. So while I hope that things work out for Brissett for as long as he's the quarterback, I just have a hard time seeing the team rally around him and them being able to win games when they are so shorthanded on offense. And you listed all the stats earlier. The defense is just not there. I mean, 24th in tackling and 22nd in yards allowed. I mean, it's just not anywhere where they hoped it would be, given the strides it looked like they had made and all the talent they had brought in. So I want to believe, but they're so injured now that I just look at it and say it's hard to believe that it's going to work out and they're going to rally around them and they're going to start being able to win football games.
Well, what was encouraging was they re-injured yesterday. They lost 2 of their key players. I mean, Volkolek was key for 12 and 13 personnel. He's out on the first play. Marvin's out early in the game. and you still rack up 400 yards of total offense at Indianapolis with 320 yards passing and rack up 27 points, which could have, could have turned out even better than that if they had been able to score at the end. And they were right at the doorstep. So, there was a lot of encouraging signs that, it looked like Jacoby could do well with whatever he was given. And that's reminiscent to me of Cliff's offenses. Cliff was voted by ESPN number 4 in the league as a coach who would get the most out of the least. And it looks to me like Jacoby Brissett could take whoever he's got. He's been around long enough and can galvanize them and get a lot out of them. I'm not sure Kyler can do that. Especially where he is now, and then wondering about this injury and the severity of it. I smile kind of with Sam about with Bidwell, you never know. Like people are like, who was it? Diane Rossini of ESPN came out and was quoting all these NFL execs who were like, "Oh, Bidwell threw Gannon under the bus. If you're gonna fine him $100,000, why didn't you just fire him?" And this and that. And then there were other execs they quoted who were like, "No, you can't do what Gannon did ever." And you got to find him. They were supportive. Other execs thought Bidwell went to the extreme. But here was the thing. As we know from past experience, like Bidwell likes to get ahead of disciplinary issues, particularly when he knows the NFL is going to intervene, as he did with Steve Keim, where he got a quid pro quo with the NFL that I'll fine, Steve Keim. I'll save you the money. I'll impose the fine and the suspension, and let that be enough. And the NFL said, "Great, Michael, you're good." And of course, that all screwed up because they had a plan in place to screw the NFL out of, with burner phones and shit like that. But here again, here's the thing. I'm not sure Gannon would have been able to coach in that game yesterday. I think that's what Bidwell was after. Was he probably thought the NFLPA and the NFL combined would suggest for at least a game suspension. Because, putting your hands on players like that is just totally unacceptable. And, in the past, BA took a swipe at an opposing player and got $50,000. They didn't suspend him a game, but that wasn't, the severity of that wasn't quite like this, and it wasn't his own player. So I think that Gannon might have been spared a 1-game suspension with no pay, which could have been more than $100,000. So whatever. Michael Bidwell decided to get out ahead of it. But with Bidwell, that's why I laugh kind of with Sam, because I think I know what he's thinking. Is that with Bidwell around, there could be a ruse going on here. Some sort of a scheme. Like, it makes no sense to me other than, we'll risk Kyler further aggravating the Liz Frank injury by having him running drop back passes in practice, so the Colts will have to prepare for 2 quarterbacks, just in case. And they were saying it will be a game time decision when they knew very well it wouldn't be. But why? That's what drives me nuts. Why play him in the second half at all against the Titans? At the time, even though Amari dropped the touchdown, it was still 21-6. Is it just so desperate to play Kyler that you're going to handicap the team if he's hurt? So, but now, if you haven't seen Michael Wilson's interview after the game, look at the joy and relief in his face and the pride he had talking about Jacoby's effort, how proud he was. And look at Trey McBride's. Trey McBride talked about how proud he was the way this offense fought and how Jacoby played. And, that's not lost on your own players. And it just strikes me as deja vu-like that this is now twice in Kyler's career where a backup quarterback's come in and played better than he was playing, and noticeably better and in better command with a smoother running offense than what Kyler was putting forth. So, and, last time, having watched Colt McCoy in 22 knock off the Rams with only one offensive starter on the offensive line still there in Beach, and beat him 27-17 in LA, and the LA team was doing pretty well at that time, and had Matthew Stafford beat them handily in LA. I'll never forget Sean McVay shaking his head like, what the frick? And but the next chance Kyler got was against the Chargers and Kyle's old team. And Kyler played one of his best games of the year. So the pressure of that and kind of had to live up to Colt's performance was obviously kicking in. Unfortunately, at the end of that game, Kyler had 2 3-and-outs, and then Justin Herbert took over, marched the team down twice, and then they go for it for 2 points and score and win by 25-24. Bummer, but is it? But are these scenarios similar enough? I think that they are. I really do. And I would imagine that, Johnny Zingano gets A's for having an open door policy. Well, I can imagine that the players are going to go to him and say, look, man, but I think a lot depends on how the offense looks this week. Too, is that if there's the players are still as excited as they are now, a week later, then we might have something on our hands. So, final thoughts, Kyle.
I just was looking through the schedule and kind of to my original point, we've covered a lot of ground. So that we have offensive line issues, in part injuries, in part Clayton Adams departing. They've taken a step back. You've got your blocking tight ends injured now. You've got multiple running backs on IR. You've got Marvin going down. And now obviously Jacoby's filling in for Kyler. Just looking at their schedule going forward, you've got, even if, let's say Jacoby's the quarterback going forward and he continues to put up 300-yard passing games and people are rallying around him the way that they did with Josh Dobbs, say, back in 2023.
Well, Dobbs' comparison isn't fair. He never threw for 320 yards in a game.
Right, but,
he wasn't dialing up, games like this. I mean,
yeah, but the players were into him, and I get it. They went like 1-6, and after the Dallas game, he was talking about they don't even have my jersey in the pro shop, but yeah. The players were excited about Dobbs. I think that's kind of the point, I guess. But anyways, like McCoy, Dobbs, whatever, you've got Green Bay at Dallas coming out of the bye week, at the Seahawks, home against the Niners, home against the Jaguars, at the Bucks, and then home against the Rams. In those 7 games, best of circumstances, you feel good if you're 3-4 coming out of that stretch. And anything above that is like, wow, they've really turned a corner and saved their season kind of situation. But that's 7 games against teams at or above 500.
Yeah. And
if they go 3-4, which I feel like is about as good as you can reasonably expect at this point, you're looking at a 5-8 team that is trying to use success of their backup quarterback and third string running back and backup tight ends to kind of convince ownership to give them another year. And that's where I feel like it's tough, is that, like, even if Brissett turns it around and they rally, they're still just so far behind the 8 ball now that it's going to be hard for them to really make meaningful strides. And that's kind of the tough part of, trying to get excited about Brissett or trying to get excited about them on offense finally putting up 300 yards. They're going to have to win some games against teams that are both above 500 and fully healthy, with essentially their second stringers on offense. Right. And that's just kind of the tough part of it. Not to say it can't happen, but they've put themselves really far behind the 8 ball with the loss against San Francisco where they had the game. The Seattle game they probably should have lost, but they had a chance to win it at the end. Blowing the Titans game and not getting the win against the Colts, they've really put themselves behind the 8 ball. And that's just the part that stinks. But staying optimistic, they threw for 300 yards for the first time since the Vikings game in 2022. So you can hold that up as a positive and hope that things are going to turn around and it's going to be this great season for the Cardinals that we look back on and say, man, how crazy was it that they were able to turn a corner after blowing that game against the Titans.
Thank you. Sam.
Well, I agree with Kyler. I agree with Kyle without the optimism. He discussed who we're playing. These are all winning football teams. This isn't a winning football team. I think the conversation at the end of the season will be, what kind of changes will this mediocre? I said it best. You have a bunch of newbies on the coaching staff who've never coached a losing squad when they're supposed to win. The person with the most experience dealing with losing squad is Mike Bidwell. And yep. The question will be, is he going to clean house again entirely? Is Monty gone? Maybe Monty should be gone. Where does the buck stop?
Right.
So, and I think it'll just be a matter of how much pain the fans are going to endure another offseason. And then is it going to end next season, or are we just going to have another rebuild, which we probably need? And we'll see what that looks like. But I don't have any optimism. This team's going to take a step backwards. They won 8 games last year. They're not going to come close to that this year. I with the murderer's row they have in front of them, the schedule they have in front of them, the fact that they're injured, the fact that the coaching staff doesn't have the experience to coach their way out of it, doesn't give me any kind of positive feelings about how this season's going to end.
All right. Well, and I guess that's probably why I'm kind of encouraged to see what I saw yesterday, is when you don't expect much, but you're hoping to see something different. That was really enjoyable to watch. And I was so proud of them. And I just want more of that. If we're going to lose, I still want to see them play well. And I don't think this is a rebuild coming up, because I think there's a lot of talent, young talent on this roster. What they'll have to do is figure out the quarterback situation, and make some key free agent signings. And I think they'll have enough talent to work with. But and then they've got to develop the talent, the young talent, a little better than how it's going right now. But yesterday I felt hope. I really felt like, and I was happy for Drew Petzing that, because those of us who've watched Kurt Warner's videos, those who watched the all 22, we see guys open all the time. But the narrative is, oh, our guys suck, they can never get open, and Kyler's. No, what's holding it back is Kyler is skittish. And he holds the ball too long at times. He bails out too early at times. And, even getting off a simple snap sometimes is a real adventure before the game clock runs out, the play clock. So, but can Kyler take heed of what Jacoby did and emulate that and bring a smoother, more focused? I think for the sake of his future, he needs to do that, obviously, whether it's here or elsewhere. And because, people are all starting to wonder, are you now the 200, you're averaging 185 yards passing per game in year 3 of a new system. And people are restless about the connection you're not quite having with Marvin Harrison Jr. and other guys on the team that you're just basically routinely ignoring. So it's going to be a topic of conversation moving forward, obviously. But yeah, I was real proud of Jacoby Brissett yesterday, and I felt like he proved a lot of points, and I felt like, and I'll end it with the title of this podcast. There's a new identity suddenly available. Like, we can pass the ball like this. It opens up all sorts of, avenues that previously haven't been available. So, well, guys, thanks so much. And, next week we'll get you maybe a little earlier next week, guys. And then get prepared for the bye week coming up and see what we got going for that. But, all eyes on Green Bay. And that's going to be a tough one. But it's interesting, whenever the Cheeseheads comes to town, there'll be a whole lot of cheese in State Farm. You just know that right now. So get prepared. But anyway, I want everyone to have a great week. And let's just get through this together and stay united. And I'm never quitting on the Cardinals, and I hope that you aren't either. But we got to it looks like we're going to need to make some changes to get this thing right. And that's always an exciting thing too, is to think about and, come up with plans. So everybody wants you to think about that. In the interim, may the red rain shower down on you into the red, red sea. Red rain.